All right, guys, I'm gonna be demonstrating the handstand walk-in exercise, which I think to some degree has become one of my absolute favorite exercises. Now, originally, just to give a little context, in the past, we used to always use this movement as solely a skill progression inside of handstand walking or doing handstand push-ups. But the more and more I think about it, I think this skill set has so much more to it than just being a piece of a puzzle to developing one of the larger gymnastics movements. I think it's actually a really great exercise for just human movement, human development, as well as upper body strength and mobility, okay? So I'm gonna demonstrate the movement, then we're gonna talk a little about how and why its application is so powerful. So always one foot up on the box first, then hands down, get into a plank position, set your second foot. Okay, what I want to see in this position is that you have a strong, proper shoulder position. So you're thinking like push up plus, and then you're going to walk your hands in, pushing your butt up to the sky and getting as vertical as possible. When in this position, elevating and shrugging and driving your chest towards the bench. A very difficult exercise, but an exercise that I've been incorporating into actual programs as a mobility and strength exercise. And we're gonna start setting up goals for this, where I'd like to be able to see people be able to do this exercise for a minimum of 5 repetitions for 3 to 5 sets with a 2 to 5 second hold at the top of every single one. Now, why this is so valuable is the fact that, think of all the things we're getting out of this exercise. So when I'm out here, I'm working on, subtly a plank position, right? A very difficult plank position. I have serratus position here where I'm pushing into the ground. So I'm doing a bit of a push-up plus, activating the serratus and the trap 3 muscles of my back. And then as I'm walking in, I have to get very comfortable moving from hand to hand, developing hand, wrist, elbow, shoulder strength, as well as scapular strength and how the scapula moves on the thorax as you go from a flat plank position up to an inverted position, changes, and you are forced to go through that. So as you're walking through, you're cueing the athlete or the individual to be pushing, and engaging all the upper back musculature. And as you get closer and closer in, and you get to that vertical position, which is modifiable depending on your flexibility. So the more flexible you are, the closer you can get. If you're not as flexible, it's self-limiting because you can only get so far. So it always is within your mobility parameters or your mobility outlines, if you will. Then when you get in here, no matter what the range of motion you're doing, it forces the upper back postural muscles of the thoracic spine and just generally upper back posture to be activated in the position. So no longer is it a passive stretch, but it's a very, very active stretch. So you're strengthening up the long and weak muscles of the upper back and forcing the short and stronger muscles of the front and the shoulder to go through a deeper range of motion. So again, you're developing strength, you're developing unilateral and bilateral strength in the upper body, you're activating and learning how to do that through an entire kinetic chain, all the way from my toes to my fingertips is engaged and working to do this position. It also, lastly, which I've overlooked, is it also stretches or strains the posterior line. So when I get into that top position, I also have to exhibit proper hamstring or at least just posterior line flexibility to sit in. So depending on the individual, it may hit you in different ways. I have some clients that this is actually a limiter on the hamstrings or the posterior line. So we have to elevate this up if I want to try and work on shoulders. But for them, if that's the limiter, well then I'll just keep them there and we'll use it as a posterior line stretch. And then if I want to play around with more shoulder stability stuff, I can elevate it, I can change it. And it's also an infinitely regressible or progressive exercise. It can start at just a down dog. So you can be doing a downward dog, walking in, walking out. That would be its starting variation. And then you can use different heights of boxes and different variations of, or just in different ranges of motion or different repetition schemes to give you different and varied times under tension, which then can be built over a period of time across a program. So this is why I absolutely love this exercise, not as just a skill set, but as an actual exercise that can be put into a training program for strength, mobility, and better human movement, okay? Fantastic, the handstand walk-in. Play with it, guys.